Hey everybody, today's lesson is going to be on the triad. What is a triad? A triad is the most basic type of chord in Western music. It contains three different notes stacked in thirds. For example, 1, 3, 5. If you're confused about what a third is, you can just start on any letter of the English alphabet and count up 3. So A, B, C would be a third away from A. C, D, E would be a third away from C. So triads have different applications on the guitar and the piano, but they can both exist there. Let's take a look at how they might work on the piano here in the treble clef. On the piano, you can see triads very clearly. You start on C and you skip every other note. So C, you skip D and you land on E. E, you skip F and you land on G. And that gives you a nice stack, C, E, G. This is a C major triad. Now, if we lower the third from E to E flat, that same chord becomes C minor, C, E flat, G. Now let's take a look at inversions. A triad is still a triad even if the notes change order. For example, if our root position is C, E, G, and our first inversion is E, G, C, and our second inversion is G, C, E, they are all still C major triads because they contain the same three notes, the same ingredients. On the guitar, applying these same three notes are spread across the strings. A triad still contains 1, 3, and 5. So now let's compare triads to other chords you might find on your guitar. Let's say the E5 power chord. That's not a triad. Firstly, it contains 2 notes, so we might call it a dyad. Another example is your classic 1-5 octave power chord. Since there is no 3 in that chord, meaning no third, the chord is neither major or minor. That's why a power chord tends to sound neutral. But it's for the same reason that it cannot be considered a triad. So don't get confused because there are 3 notes or 3 sounds in the chord. The tri in triad has to do with moving by thirds. Now let's say, for example, we take that C major triad that we looked at before. If we add another note on top, say a B, we've now turned this into a C major 7 chord. This is also not a triad anymore because it has 4 chord tones. Sometimes guitarists might play a reduced version, like C, E, B, 1, 3, 7. This is still part of a 7th chord, just with the 5th omitted. So even though there are 3 notes, it's not a triad. Hope this clears things up for you. Now let's take a look at some ways you can play triads. Here's a movable major shape. Here it goes root, 3rd, 5th. But we can also do inversions, just like we did on the piano. 3rd, 5th, root, and another. 5th, root, 3rd. So here we have examples of movable major triad shapes. So each one of these shapes can be moved around all over the guitar, and if we pay attention to where our root note is, we'll be creating the given major triad. With that in mind, if we modify the third, we can also come up with some new shapes to give us movable minor triads. We can continue this process with other intervals. For example, moving the 5 to create augmented triads, or moving the 5 and the 3 to create a diminished triad. Make sure to remember that these are movable shapes, so you can slide them around as long as you pay attention to where your root note is. You'll know what chord you're playing. Hope this was helpful. I'll see you next time.